but to have a personality. And as we were saying before, it's even harder to be a drummer with a personality, and Alex has tons of personality. I mean, really, it's Alex and John Bonham and Neil Peart and Keith Moon as well. Those four guys, Alex is in the top four guys when it comes to establishing a stamp of a human flesh and blood personality on the drums.
Right. That's true. That's very true.
I think.
In doing the book, did you attempt to contact the band by any chance?
Not really. I mean, a little bit. I mean, I think I emailed to try to find Mikey. I might have tried to find Sam, although I think I might have tried to get Sam more for my Montrose book. I did a big, massive, really cool Montrose book, which I'm pretty proud of.
Cool.
But it's a bit like Queen with Van Halen with me. It's like I have Janie's email address. I email her. She answers me back immediately, but it's always a no, right? You guys probably know this, right? She's great. Right. And I think I remember dealing with her from her PR days, right? But so I think she kind of like it registers in her mind who I am, and maybe I deserve a response, but it's always, no, Eddie will not talk to you at this time, but thanks anyways.
Right, yeah.
So
that's
Eddie
what she does.
Polite. Yeah, she's and I love that, and it's like I remember thinking along in my whatever you want to call this stupid thing, career, hobby of doing all this stuff.
That
I remember I just loved even getting an answer from Led Zeppelin's Camper.
Right.
You know, or Elton John. I mean, I got long story, but I did these album by album books, and I got a very nice response from Elton John's camp. You know, he can't talk to you, but this is why. It's like, well, that's cool. Just give me an answer, right?
Right.
You know,
exactly.
And I love that, right?
Time of day.
So it's funny. So no, I haven't.
What about Dave? Have you tried reaching Dave?
Dave, I don't even know if I even tried that hard. I can't even remember. I just feel like Dave is such a mythic character. I've never talked to him.
Right.
I've talked to a lot of pretty massive rock stars.
Right.
But Dave, it almost just seems like I almost don't even believe he exists. He's almost like the most fascinating person in all of rock to me.
Yeah, he really is. He's difficult to interview because I interviewed him in 1994.
Wow, good for you, man.
And I interviewed him face to face. And let me tell you something. I was so young at the time that I literally brought a backpack of stuff to get signed. And let me tell you something. This is how cool he was. He got his assistant to get out a table and laid out every piece I had, and he signed every single piece.
Wow, that is amazing.
It was
I love that
It was
story.
unbelievable. And he sat down with me. I interviewed him, but the thing is that, you know, when you interview Dave, he never answers a direct question. So he like if you say like, Dave, like, what is the deal between you and Ed? Why are you at such odds? And he's like, well, let me tell you something about the moon and the stars, baby, the way it. And then he just goes, and it's like, and you're like, and you're so entertained by the answer that you forget the question that you actually answered.
Man, that is so cool.
He's crazy. Yeah. So he is a wild mythic character. He really is. He's almost like a walking cartoon or something. And obviously there's some sort of man underneath there, but sometimes you don't want to look underneath Darth Vader's mask. You just want to be like, wow, he's pretty cool as Darth Vader. So, like, you know.
Well, like we said earlier, right? Yeah. It's like we're fascinated with, like, what do you guys do all day? All day. I know. It's amazing. Well, we kind of get a little taste of what Ed's been doing. He seems to be lying on the couch with his dog Cody a lot. And that's cool because, look, my whole thing is like, hey, listen, man, if you want to retire, that's cool. Just say, hey, I'm retiring and I'm just kicking back. But the constant not knowing is what drives everybody crazy. And especially in the age of information with so much ways to communicate, as you well know, like people know what Slash ate for dinner last night. It's just the way our society is. Everybody knows everything between Instagram and Twitter and Facebook and everything. These guys, like, they haven't even updated their own website in 3 years. And just the basic human knowledge information they haven't updated.
and it's unbelievable. It's almost like they don't have a business. And you wonder in today's world how you could let something like that go so badly that you don't even do the bare bones. I mean, look at their they have piss poor reissues. Piss poor. I mean, as you well know, there's bonus tracks that you could put on some of these albums and reissue them with repackaging, and there's no deep cut live albums. There's nothing. They won't release anything.
I know, and the funny thing is, it's like certain artists are not as cool as Van Halen, and it's like you could say, if you fade away, that's fine. But Van Halen, Eddie, is so cool as a guitarist that you almost think he owes it to the world to put this stuff out. I mean, a corollary of that is when we were working on the ZZ Top documentary, right?
Right.
A legendary figure in ZZ Top lore is manager Bill Ham, right?
Right, sure.
So he was always reticent about being interviewed. He famously doesn't want to be interviewed, blah, blah, blah. Then he dies.
Wow.
So all of a sudden, it's like, okay, Bill Ham took all those great stories and all that great wisdom and all that great Americana and Texas-cana to his grave.
Wow.
It's like, well, way to go, buddy, because, would it have hurt you to, like, talk for 2 hours to somebody?
Yeah.
Well,
Van Halen won't do that
you
either.
Almost feel, obviously, we all feel a little bit like, Eddie, you are such a national treasure.
Right.
That you owe this to like just making tens of thousands of people happy to give us more of your art.
Right. I know. It's incredible. If you think about how much he's recorded and how little he's released, it's incredible. Because if you've ever seen some video footage of him walking through the library of 5150, there's some video of it. They've let like camera crews in there for like, CBS Sunday morning, and it's like him and Wolfie. They show libraries and he goes, "This is all my music," and he's pointing to it on a wall. And it's nothing, it's not the albums that we know. It's reels and reels and reels of tape that's just going to get lost. and it's all of that stuff is just going to rot. And none of it's going to...
It's not art, right? It needs an editor. Just the same way
of course.
I'm going through this. Right now I'm doing the second half of the Black Sabbath thing. I'm calling it Born Again Black Sabbath in the 80s and 90s.
Right.
And as I was saying earlier, Vinny Appice, at one point when they make these albums, they just record tapes and tapes and tapes of Tony doing riffs.
Right.
And it's like, and then he says, but you know what? We never go back to him. Tony just does a new riff and we work on that.
Right.
And then all of a sudden, if you don't do that, if you're not a Vinny, if you're not a Wolfie, you need an editor to do that deep dive, to look for the gold and then turn it into songs. And there's so much great art that even just in the visual art world that just gets thrown out. I remember I saw this great documentary. It's tragic about this guy who filled his house up with art, this crazy, crazy art.
Right.
There's this great documentary, and then it all got bulldozed.
Yeah.
And gone. So Eddie's stuff, what's there, it's not even marketable. You can't put that out to the public the way it is with all those libraries.
Well, you need someone. You need a producer or somebody to go through it. I mean, like the way they did the Beatles anthologies. I mean, that took a lot of time in editing to go through.
Yeah, but how much of that stuff is really songs, right? Because
you're right.
They're famously antisocial enough that there's no vocalist in there on them because they don't like singers, right? So they're not even in there. Sammy's not in there and Dave's not in there. They're not doing all this. So unfortunately, it needs the whole idea of a mediator, like a Wolfie or a manager or a good manager or people to put people together and turn this stuff that is like raw materials into gold, because it can be turned into gold. Because that's the whole Van Halen career, is turning old riffs into gold, right?
Right. They need somebody to kick them in the butt and say, okay, let's put out something releasable. But they're just not in that mode right now.
But Eddie would be in what, his mid-60s now, right?
Early 60s.
About what? He's turning 64 in January, Dave, right?
Something like that.
Yeah.
So as I was saying before, what we run into also is just a lack of ambition eventually and a lack of energy, and the fact that he's accomplished so much. When a person has accomplished so much, the desire to accomplish more goes down. But then again, we've also talked about Eddie as being one of the most pure artistic people we know, and he loves art so much, he doesn't even care or see, or his ego is big enough that the entire 68% of it that is the commercial part of it doesn't even enter his brain.
That's true.
So he's happy with just making the art and sticking it on the shelf.
That's the truth.
Yeah. Well, I mean, and he's into making guitars now. That seems to be his passion, where he's moved the last few years.
Yeah, he's definitely.
So, I mean, he's not sitting around doing nothing all day eating bonbons.
No.
He's doing something.
But
it's just that I don't play guitar. So as a fan, I'm just looking for.
But I hate that. I hate that about him. I don't like that. I'm bored with gear and tech and effects and guitars. It drives me crazy when these guys start talking about their guitars and how important they are personally to them. I don't understand it. I think it's stupid. I think the most important thing you can do is take that guitar and make some songs.
Right.
Amen.
That's true. That's true. And we'll end on that. And Martin, we want to thank you so much for your time. It has been fantastic to talk to you. You were so generous to talk to us for 2 hours. And it is...
Guys, man, it's been the most fun I've had in an interview in years. This has been a blast talking to you guys.
Awesome. That's great. We felt the same. I have tons and tons of your books. I read them all the time. You do a fantastic job with whatever band you are focused on. I really love them all. You are really a legend in your field. So please, everybody, www.martin, M-A-R-T-I-N, Popoff, P-O-P-O-F-F.com. Get your Unchained book, and Martin will even sign them, right? I saw it on your website. You signed them, right?
Absolutely.
If you want. Yeah.
They're all coming from my office. I'm packing them up, signing them. You bet.
That's right. So order them now so you can get them for the holidays. You definitely want to have this book. We are definitely going to get them ourselves, and Dave and I will do a whole discussion on the book once the book comes out. It is Unchained by Martin Popoff. You remember that name. You've seen it. You probably already have some of his books because a lot of you listen to a lot of the same bands that Martin writes about. And Martin, we can't thank you enough for coming on and chewing the Van Halen fat with us.
Thanks, guys, man. This was fun.
Whoa! How about that for rock video music fans? Live all day, all night. You know what you need. Only right here on Dave TV.
Check us out on Facebook at Dave and Dave Unchained, a Van Halen podcast, on Twitter at DD Unchained, on Instagram at DD Unchained Podcast, and you can email us at ddunchainedpodcast@gmail.com.
Wait, did I even say it from the beginning? All right, just redo it again. Fucking losing my mind. I gotta take my shirt off. Just my top shirt. Oh, I'm fucking hot. All right. It's fucking bullshit. All right.
Fat guys always get hot.
All right, here we go.